The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse suite at the Greenwich Hotel in Manhattan, each drop creating a rhythmic percussion that echoed through the marble-floored space. Outside, the city lights blurred into watercolor streaks against the November darkness. Inside, Marcus Ashford stood with his hands buried deep in the pockets of his tailored ton-foot suit, staring at those lights as if they held answers to questions he couldn't take to formulate. He was 38 years old, worth approximately $200 million, give or take the fluctuations of his tech company as a stock, and at this moment, he felt absolutely nothing. The numbness had settled in 3 weeks ago, the day his younger brother Daniel's car went off the Pacific Coast Highway near Big Sur. They found the Mercedes wrapped around a redwood tree, Daniel's body still strapped, and the driver associated a blood alcohol level that told a story Marcus didn't want to believe. The funerals had been a circus. Business associates who they barely known Daniel offering hollow condolences. Society vultures dressed in designer black, whispering behind manicured hands. Their mother, Eleanor Ashford, maintaining her icy composure even as they lowered her youngest son into the ground at Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx, next to their father who died of a heart attack 5 years prior. Marcus had delivered the eulogy with the same mechanical efficiency he applied to quarterly earnings calls. He did said all the right things about Daniel's charm, his passion for life, his infectious laugh. He hadn't mentioned the gambling debts, the parade of women, the cocaine habit Daniel thought he did so well, the fights they had in the months before the accident, if it even was an accident. The apartment door clicked open behind him, pulling Marcus from his dark reverie. He didn't turn around. He knew who it was. "You were late, Katherine," he said, his voice flat. "Traffic from JFK was a nightmare," came the response. The voice was softer than he'd expected, with a slight rasp that spoke of tall men cigarettes with too much whiskey. "Maybe both. The rain doesn't help." Marcus finally turned, preparing himself for the confrontation he'd been rehearsing in his mind since making this arrangement. Daniel had talked about Katherine constantly over the past 6 months, his girlfriend, his partner, the woman who understood him. Marcus had imagined some glamorous socialite model, the type of arm candy his brother typically favored. Beautiful, vapid, expensive. The woman standing in his entryway, water dripping from a worn leather jacket onto his Italian teal, was nothing like that image. She was probably in her early 30s, with dark auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, a few wet strands clinging to her face. No makeup that he could detect. Jeans that had seen better days, paired with scuffed boots that looked like they'd walked 1,000 miles. She carried a small backpack, not luggage, just a backpack, and her eyes, deep green and impossibly tired, met his with something that looked almost like defiance. "You are not the woman my brother described," Marcus said, the words coming out sharper than he'd intended. Katherine set her backpack down slowly, deliberately, and for a moment that something flickered across her face, hers, maybe, or anger. Then it was gone, replaced by a careful neutrality. "I get that a lot," she said. "People see what they want to see." Daniel saw what he needed to see. And what was that? Someone who gave a damn about him. Not his money, not his connections, just him. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. The presumption of this woman, standing in his home wall, one of his homes, making claims about knowing his brother better than family. He'd dealt with enough gold diggers in his own life to recognize the pattern. They always had the same story: "I loved him for who he really was," as if poverty somehow equated to purity of intention. "My lawyer contacted you about Daniel's wall," Marcus said, cutting through whatever gum she was playing. "There is a bequest. $25,000. Standard procedure for anyone mentioned in the document. I can have a check cut tomorrow, or we can wire it to whatever account you provide. Either way, I'm sure you'll want to get back to." He paused, realizing he had no idea where she'd even come from, wherever home is. Katherine didn't move. She just stood there, water pooling at her feet, watching him with those unsettling green eyes. "He didn't come for the money, Mr. Ashford," asked Marcus. "And everyone comes for the money. That is what money does. It attracts people, like moths to a flame. My brother learned that lesson a lot." "Did he?" Katherine's voice carried an edge now. "Or did you learn it perfectly well, and that is why he kept me a secret from you?" that landed like a physical blow. Marcus felt his carefully constructed composure crack slightly. Danielle had kept her a secret 6 months, supposedly together, and Marcus had never met her, never even heard her name until the lawyers went through Danielle's papers. No photos on Danielle's social media. No appearances at family events. Nothing. If you were so important to him, Marcus said slowly, why didn't he tell anyone about you? Because he knew what you did think. What you were thinking right now. Katherine moved further into the room, her boots squelching slightly. She didn't seem to care about the water or the expensive flooring or the fact that she was in a penthouse that probably cost more per month than most people made in a year. That I was using him. That I was just another person trying to get close to the Ashford fortune. Waiting to you. I was a hospice nurse in Portland, Oregon, Mr. Ashford. I worked 60 weeks taking care of dying people, holding their hands when their families called in to be bothered to show up, cleaning their bodies, listening to their regrets. I made $42,000 a year. I didn't need your brother's money. I needed her voice caught, just slightly. I needed him to stop killing himself. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with accusation and grief. Marcus felt something uncomfortable twist in his chest. Danielle had his problems, he said carefully, but he was getting help. He was in therapy. He'd checked into rehab twice, and checked himself out both times. Usually within 72 hours. Katherine shrugged off her wet jacket, revealing a simple gray t-shirt underneath. He called me every team. 3 in the morning, high out of his mind or drunk or both, talking about how nobody understood him, how his family expected him to be someone he wasn't, how the pressure was crushing him. If you were here to blame me for his death, I am not here to blame anyone. I am here because Danielle asked me to do something, and I keep my promises. Marcus studied her face, looking for deception, for the tell that would reveal whatever angle she was working. But there was nothing. Just exhaustion and something that looked uncomfortably like genuine grief. What did he ask you to do? Katherine reached into her backpack and pulled out a worn leather notebook, the kind writers used before everything went digital. She held it out to him. Read this. All of it. And then see if you still think I am just another person who came for the money. Marcus shut the notebook, feeling the weight of it in his hands. The leather was soft, clearly expensive, probably something Danielle had bought on one of his shopping sprees. He opened it to the first page and saw his brother's handwriting, the same loose scrawl that had been on birthday cards and apology notes for as long as Marcus could remember. March 15. Met someone today, Kappa. She told me to stop feeling sorry for myself. Nobody has ever said that to me before. I'll make coffee, Katherine said, moving toward the kitchen as if she knew where everything was. This is going to take a while. Marcus wanted to tell her to stop, to remind her this was his space and she had no right to make herself at home. But something about the situation, the notebook, the way she moved through the room with weary confidence stopped him. Instead, he sat down on the leather sofa facing those Wayne Street windows and began to read. The entries started casually. Danielle had been in Portland for some tech conference. Bored out of his mind, when he wandered into the hospital waiting room looking for coffee at 2 in the morning. Katherine had been there, on a break from her shift, and they started talking. She deepened direct, almost harsh, when Danielle started his usual routine of self-deprecating humor mixed with humble bragging about his lifestyle. She asked me what I was running from, not hiding from, running from, like she could see right through me. The entries became more frequent. Phone calls after Danielle returned to New York, then another trip to Portland, then Katherine visiting New York, always meeting in hotels or restaurants, never at Danielle's apartment, never anywhere he might be photographed or recognized. Marcus would hate her, not because she is not good enough, she is better than anyone he ever met, but because she did tell him things about me he doesn't want to know. Things he'd been hiding. Marcus felt his throat tighten as she read. Danielle wrote about his gambling, not just the casual poker games Marcus knew about, but online gambling that had cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars. He wrote about the cocaine habit that had progressed from party drug to daily necessity. He wrote about the women he'd been with, meaningless encounters that left him feeling more empty than before. And he wrote about Katherine, how she found him passed out in a hotel bathroom after a particularly bad night, how she slapped him awake, literally slapped him, and told him he could either check himself into a hospital or she was walking away forever, how she sat with him through a draw, holding a bucket while he vomited, refusing to let him charm or manipulate his way out of facing his demons. She does not love the idea of me. She does not love what I represent or what I can give her. She loves me enough to tell me I am destroying myself. Nobody else has ever loved me that much. The coffee cup appeared on the table beside Marcus. He hadn't even heard Katherine approach. She sat down in the chair across from him, her own cup gradually in her hands, and waited. Keep reading, she said quietly. Marcus did. The letter entries were different, clearer, more focused. Danielle had been genuinely trying to get clean. He'd found a new therapist in Portland, started attending the meetings. He'd written about planning to tell the family about Katherine, about wanting to introduce her properly, about hoping Marcus would understand. I know what he'll think. That she is after the money. That she is manipulating me. But maybe if he meets her, talks to her, he'll see what I see. Someone who does not give a damn about the Ashford name or the bank accounts or the connections. Someone who sees me the real me, the broken, scared, messed up me and stays anyway. The final entry was dated 3 days before Daniela's death. I am scared, Kappa. The old debts are catching up. People I borrowed from before I got clean, people who don't care about my excuses or promises. Evie tried to handle it quietly, tried to pay them off without Marcus finding out. But they want more than money now. They want me to be the access point. To launder their money through the company. I can't do that. I want to drag Marcus and the company into this. But I don't know how to get out. I don't know if there is a way out. If something happens, say me, please find Marcus. Give him this journal. Tell him I am sorry. Tell him I tried to be better. Tell him that knowing you made me want to be better. And tell him to be careful. These people, they know about him. They've been asking questions. I think I made a mistake, Kappa. I think I made a terrible mistake, and I don't know how to fix it. The last line was written in a shaky hand, as if Danielle had been drinking or crying or both. I love you. I am sorry I couldn't be the man you deserved. I am sorry for all of it. Marcus closed the notebook slowly, his hands trembling. The rain had intensified outside, and the sound of it filled the silence in the apartment. He couldn't look at Katherine, couldn't face what he was feeling, the guilt, the rage, the crushing realization that he'd missed everything important. The police said it was an accident. He finally managed. Blood alcohol level was 0.15. He was drunk, lost control of the car on a dangerous stretch of highway. The police said what they found evidence for. Katherine replied. Her voice was steady, but Marcus could hear the pain underneath. But Danielle hadn't had a drink in 42 days before that night. I know because I talk to you every single day, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. That is what sponsors do. You were a sponsor, unofficial. I don't have the formal training, but I had the experience. Lost my father to alcoholism when I was 16. My older brother to an overdose 3 years ago. I knew the signs, knew the struggles, and I knew Danielle went to drinking. Marcus finally looked up at her. Then I don't know. That is the truth. I got a call from him the night he died, around 7 Polícia Militar Pacific team. He sounded scared but sober, said he had a meeting with someone about the deaths, someone who they promised to help make the problem go away. He wouldn't tell me who or where, said he'd call me after. He never did. The implications settled over Marcus like a shroud. You think someone killed him? I think someone made sure he'd never talk about whatever he'd gotten involved in. And I think you need to be very careful, Marcus. Because if Danielle was telling the truth in the journal, if these people were asking about you, about the company. She let the sentence hang. Marcus stood up abruptly, pacing to the windows. His mind was racing, connecting dots he'd been too grief-stricken or too woefully blind to see before. Danielle's death had come right as the company was preparing for a major acquisition, a deal worth $300 million. If someone had wanted access to that kind of money movement, Danielle would have been a perfect vulnerable entry point. And if Danielle had refused, Why didn't you go to the police with this? Marcus demanded. And tell them what? That my boyfriend, who he'd been hiding from his family, wrote in a journal about mysterious debt collectors? That I think he was murdered but have absolutely no proof. No witnesses, no names, no evidence beyond my gut feeling that something was wrong? Katherine's laugh was bitter. I am a hospice nurse from Portland, Mr. Ashford. The police in California were perfectly happy to close the case as a drunk driving accident, rich boy with a history of substance abuse and reckless behavior. It fit their narrative perfectly. But you don't believe it? No. And neither do you, if you were being honest with yourself. Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to dismiss her theory as the desperate grief of someone who called in to accept the tragic but simple truth. But he called in to, because she was right. Danielle had been trying. The last few times they'd spoken, Danielle had seemed different, still troubled, but focused, determined. He'd talked about making amends, about having something important to discuss with Marcus. Marcus had assumed it was another request for money or help with some new crisis. If what you were suggesting is true, Marcus said slowly, then whoever did this is still out there, and they might still be interested. He didn't get to finish the sentence. The lights in the apartment went out, plunging them into darkness broken only by the ambient glow of the city through the windows. A second later, Marcus heard the unmistakable sound of the front door being forced open. Katherine was on her feet instantly, moving with the kind of calm efficiency that spoke of someone who'd faced crisis before. Kitchen. Now, she hissed, grabbing her backpack. Marcus's mind struggled to catch up. This was his building, his home, one of the most secure residential addresses in Manhattan. There were alarming security cameras, access codes. Nobody just broke in unless they had the resources and motivation to bypass all of that. Two figures entered the apartment, silhouettes against the light from the hallway. They moved professionally, one covering while the other advanced. Marcus saw the glint of something metallic, a gun, definitely a gun. Katherine grabbed his arm and yanked him toward the kitchen with surprising strength. They made it through the doorway just as one of the intruders spoke. Mr. Ashford, we just want to talk about your brother's debts. The voice was calm, almost polite, Midwestern accents, male, probably middle-aged. It was somehow more terrifying than if he'd been shouting threats. Marcus found himself pressed against the kitchen island, Katherine's hand still gripping his arm, her backpack now open. To his shock, she pulled out a small pistol, a compact 9mm that looked well used. You carry a gun? He whispered. I worked night shifts in some rough neighborhoods, she whispered back. And after Danielle started talking about the people he owed money to, he wasn't taking chances. Mr. Ashford? The voice continued from the living room. Your brother made some promises before he died. Promises about access to your company's financial systems. We were here to collect on those promises. Danielle had no access to the company's systems. Marcus called back, trying to keep his voice steady. He wasn't involved in the business operations. That is not entirely true, though, is it? A different voice now, younger, with a sharper edge. He was listed as a junior partner. He had losing credentials. And according to our information, those credentials haven't been deactivated since his death. Marcus felt his blood run cold. That was true. In the chaos after Danielle's death, he hadn't thought to revoke his brother's system access. It was a standard security protocol if you were in a tech company. For God's sake, he missed it. Even if the credentials are still active, Marcus said, they don't give access to anything sensitive. Danielle called in to move money or approve transactions. But you can. The first voice again, getting closer to the kitchen. And we'd have a very simple proposal. You were going to log into your system right now. You were going to approve a series of transfers we've already prepared. Small amounts, spread across multiple accounts, nothing that will trigger immediate flags. And then we were going to walk out of here, and you were never going to see us again. And if I refuse, then we'll be forced to demonstrate that we were serious about this arrangement. Katherine's hand tightened on Marcus's arm. In the faint light from the windows, he could see her face, and what he saw there wasn't the fear, it was calculation. She was planning something. How did you find me? Marcus called out, buying team. This address is not public. Your brother was very cooperative before his accident, very talkative about his family, especially after a few drinks. A pause, heavy with implication. Such a tragedy, how impaired his judgment became. The confirmation of what Katherine had suspected hit Marcus like a physical blow. They killed Danielle, staged the accident, and now they were here for him. I need to think about this, Marcus said, his mind racing through options. Call for help, but his phone was in the living room. Trigger the building's security system, but the panic button was in the bedroom. Run, but where? You have 30 seconds, the voice said. Then we start making this unpleasant. Katherine leaned close to Marcus's ear, her breath warm against his skin. When I'm off, you run. Bedroom. There is usually a panic button in the master bedroom of these places, right? Yes, bars no buts. I am not letting them kill you the way they killed Danielle. You don't even know me, Marcus whispered urgently. You don't tell me anything. Katherine's eyes met his, and in that moment, Marcus saw something that took his breath away. Not fear, not calculation, but a fierce, determined loyalty. Danielle loved you. That's enough. Before Marcus could respond, Katherine moved. She stepped out from behind the island, her gun raised, and fired twice at the ceiling. The muzzle flash lit up the kitchen like lightning, and the deafening report echoed through the apartment. NYPD, drop your weapons, she shouted, her voice transformed into something commanding and authoritative. It was a bluff. There was no way the intruders would believe she was actually police, but it bought the seconds they needed. Marcus heard cursing from the living room, the sound of people moving. He ran. The bedroom was at the end of a short hallway, and Marcus covered the distance faster than he'd ever moved in his life. Behind him, he heard more shots. Katherine firing, return fire from the intruders. The sound of something breaking, someone shouting in pain. Marcus slammed the bedroom door shut and threw the lock, useless against professionals, but it might buy seconds. He lunged for the nightstand, yanked open the drawer, and found the panic button. One press would alert building security and send a direct signal to the NYPD. He pressed it 3 times, then looked around desperately for anything that could serve as a weapon. His eyes landed on a golf club, a sandwich he'd been meaning to return to the club. He grabbed it. The bedroom door exploded inward, the lock tearing from the frame. One of the intruders stood there, male, early 40s, professional build, gun raised. Marcus swung the golf club with all his strength, connecting with the man's wrist. The gun went flying, and the man howled in pain. Marcus didn't wait. He followed up with another swing, this one aimed at the head. The man ducked, but the club caught him on the shoulder hard enough to send him stumbling backward. Katherine, Marcus shouted, advancing out of the bedroom. Katherine! He found her in the hallway, her back against the wall, her left arm pressed against her side. Blood seeped between her fingers. The second intruder was on the ground, not moving, a pool of dark liquid spreading beneath him. "You shot," Marcus said, his voice coming out strangled. "At essa crash," Katherine said through gritted teeth. "The other one, kitchen. I hit him. Where is your gun?" "Empty." She nodded toward the second intruder. "Разижнете, but we need him off. Now, the one you hit will recover, and I don't know if they're automatic." In the distance, sirens wailed, building security responding to the panic button. Marcus moved to the fallen intruder, carefully picking up his weapon. The weight of it felt alien in his hand. The man he'd hit with the golf club appeared in the living room doorway, cradling his injured arm. For a moment, the 2 men locked eyes. Marcus raised the gun, his hand shaking. "Police are on the way," Marcus said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Whatever you are being paid, it is not worth presenting or dying." The man's eyes flickered toward his partner, still motionless on the floor, then back to Marcus. Some calculation happened behind those eyes. Risk versus reward, success versus survival. "The siege not over," the man said. "You think the police can protect you? You think we are the only ones who know about this?" Then he turned and ran, disappearing through the still open apartment door. Marcus heard his footsteps receding down the hallway, the sound of the emergency stairwell door opening and closing. Marcus lowered the gun, his entire body trembling with adrenaline. Katherine slid down the wall, leaving a smear of blood, until she was sitting on the floor. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow. We need to get you to hospital, Marcus said, kneeling beside her. We need to get somewhere safe, Katherine corrected. Hospital means police reports, questions, team for whoever sent these guys to regroup and try again. Katherine, you ain't bleedy, EV seem worse. I told you, it is a graze. Hurts like hell, but I am not dying. She looked at him with those intense green eyes. But you need to listen to me now, Marcus. Really listen. Your brother got mixed up with people who don't leave loose ends. They killed him to shut him up, and they'll kill you to get what they want. The police can't stop them. The law can't stop them. We need to figure out who they are and what they actually want before they come back with more than two guys. The sirens were getting closer. Marcus could hear commotion in the hallway, building security, probably securing the floor. In a few minutes, this place would be swarming with police. I have a place, Marcus heard himself saying, a property in upstate New York, near the Catskills. It is registered under a shell company, no connection to me personally. We can go there, figure this out. You have a secret panic house. Katherine almost smiled. Rich people are weird. It was my father. He was paranoid about corporate espionage. But it is secured, off the grid, and most importantly, unknown to anyone except me and the property manager. Then that is where we go, eh? Katherine tried to stand, winced, and accepted Marcus's help. But first, we need to get out of this building without being detained by the police for the next 12 hours. Any ideas? Marcus thought fast. Service elevator goes directly to the parking garage. If we move now, before the police arrive and lock everything down, we can make it. They moved as quickly as Katherine's injury allowed, grabbing only essentials: the journal, Katherine's backpack, Marcus's laptop, and phone. Marcus took a moment to throw some clothes into a bag, along with cash from his bedroom safe. The sounds of activity from the front of the apartment told him they had maybe 3 minutes. The service elevator was at the end of the kitchen hallway, designed for staff and deliveries. Marcus had never used it before. The door opened with a keycard he'd been given when he bought the place but had never actually needed. The elevator descended in silence. Katherine leaned against the wall, her face growing pallid. Marcus watched the floor numbers tick down, his mind spinning through everything that had just happened. 3 hours ago, he'd been a grieving brother dealing with estate matters. Now he was fleeing his own home with a woman he'd just met, haunted by people who'd murdered his brother. "I am sorry," Katherine said suddenly. Marcus looked at her. "For what?" "For bringing this to your door. If he hadn't come here, if he hadn't pushed you to read the journal, they were already coming." Marcus interrupted. "Whether you were here or not, they were coming. You saved my life. I got shot. You got shot saving my life. There is a difference." The elevator opened into the parking garage. Marcus's car, a modest Audi SUV he kept for the rare occasions he drove himself, was parked in his designated spot. He helped Katherine into the passenger seat, threw the bags in the back, and got behind the wheel. "Are you okay to drive?" Katherine asked, pressing her jacket against her wound. "I am about to find out." Marcus pulled out of the garage, taking the exit that led to a side street rather than the main entrance. He could see police cars pulling up to the front of the building, their lights painting the wet pavement in red and blue. They drove north through Manhattan, Marcus taking random turns to make sure they weren't being followed. Katherine stayed silent, watching the mirrors, her injured arm cradled against her body. It was only as they merged onto the Henry Hudson Parkway, heading toward the George Washington Bridge, that Katherine spoke again. "That man I shot. In your apartment. Is he?" "I don't know," Marcus said honestly. "He didn't check. EV never shot anyone before. EV had the gun for 3 years and never even drawn it in a threatening situation until tonight." Marcus glanced at her. Even in profile, he could see the weight of what she did settling on her shoulders. "You didn't have a choice. There is always a choice. I chose to pull the trigger. I chose your life over his. I am grateful for the choice," Marcus said quietly. They drove in silence for a while, the city giving way to suburbs, then to darker stretches of highway lined with trees. The rain had eased to a light drizzle. Tell me about the house we were going to, Katherine said eventually. It's actually a cabin. My father built it in the 70s. Back when he was building their business and convinced that corporate rivals were going to kidnap us for ransom. It has on 40 acres of forest, no neighbors for miles. He upgraded it over the years: satellite internet, solar panels, a well, a generator. Completely self-sufficient if needed. Did he ever actually have to use it? No. But he checked on it every few months until he died. After that, I just kept paying the property manager to maintain it. He's been there maybe twice in the last 5 years. Why keep it? Marcus considered the question. Insurance, I guess. Or superstition. Dad always said that the moment you stop being paranoid is the moment that someone takes advantage of you. I thought he was crazy. Now I am thinking he might have been a genius. Another silence. Marcus found himself aware of Katherine's presence in the car, her breathing, the way she shifted to find a comfortable position, the faint smell of gunpowder and blood mixed with something that might have been her shampoo. You really loved him, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. I really did, Katherine confirmed. I know what it looked like. Poor girl meets rich guy, sees an opportunity. But Danielle wasn't an opportunity. He was a person, a complicated, damaged, beautiful person who was trying so hard to be better than he was. He never told me about you. He was protecting me. From you, from your mother, from the whole world that would have looked at me and seen exactly what you saw when I walked into your apartment. White trash with a nursing degree, punching above her weight. Marcus felt shame hit his face. That's not, that's exactly what you thought. Be honest, he called into Arga. She was right. He had looked at her worn clothes and scuffed boots and made a dozen assumptions, none of them charitable. I am sorry, he said. Don't be. I would have thought the same thing in your position. Rich people don't usually connect with hospice nurses on any meaningful level. We were to help the people you pay to deal with the messy parts of life, and if you do rather not think about that's not fair. Life is not fair, Marcus. If it was, Danielle would still be alive. If it was, he'd still be in Portland, getting ready for my night shift instead of bleeding in the car running from killers. They crossed into New York State proper, leaving New Jersey behind. The traffic thinned out as they got further from the city. Marcus kept checking the mirrors, but saw nothing suspicious. Tell me about Danielle, he said. The real Danielle. The one he didn't see. Katherine was quiet for a long moment. He was kind. That is the thing people missed about him. He put on this party boy persona, the reckless rich kid who didn't care about consequences. But underneath it, he was so kind it almost hurt. He did see homeless people and want to stop and give them money, get them food, find out their stories. He cried when he watched sad movies. He remembered everyone's birthday, even people he'd only met once or twice. The dogs not sound like the Danielle I knew. That is because he didn't think you'd a respected version of him. He thought you wanted him to be tough, business-minded, more like you. So he pretended to be someone else. The gambling, the drugs, the women, a lot of that was him trying to be the person he thought he was supposed to be. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. I never wanted him to be like me. Didn't you? Every time you bailed out of trouble, every time you gave him that disappointed look, every time you compared his life to yours, he felt it. He felt like he was failing at being in Ashford. I was just trying to protect him, to guide him. I know. And he knew that too. That's why he was so desperate to prove himself to you, to show you he could be better. That's why he refused to drag you into the mess with the debts. He'd rather die than disappoint you again. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Katherine was describing a relationship he thought he understood, but from an entirely different angle. He'd seen his interventions as tough love, necessary guidance for a brother who kept making the same mistakes. He'd never considered that Danielle might have seen them as proof of his inadequacy. He didn't disappoint me, Marcus said, his voice rough. He was my brother. I loved him. Did you tell him that? When he was alive, did you tell him? Marcus couldn't answer. He couldn't remember the last time he'd said those words to Danielle. They weren't the kind of family that Ashford showed love through actions, through support and protection and solving problems. Saying it out loud seemed unnecessary, almost embarrassing. But maybe that was exactly the problem. I thought he knew, Marcus finally said. People can read minds, Marcus. Not even brothers. They drove on through the darkness, Marcus's thoughts.